All right, welcome to Yin and Yang, the podcast. Yay!
Yay.
Episode 43. We are here.
43, wow.
Yeah, episode 43 with our guest today is Henry B. Chen. Woo! Henry is a writer. He has written for such shows as Boomerang. He was a personal executive assistant to Kathryn Bigelow on Detroit. He was my mentor for the TAF pitch competition that happened recently last month. Among other things, he also has a few projects in development that we should be able to talk about. Yeah,
Sure.
Such as Tino, Salvage, and Three Ninjas, which I watched recently.
Nice.
The first one. Yeah, I haven't seen the. Have you seen all of them? I'm assuming. Yeah.
Once upon a time, but for our purposes, I just rewatched the first one. It's
first one. Yeah.
It's all on YouTube. Like
Is
the entire movie, the entire first movie from '92 is on YouTube. And
Is it legally on YouTube though? I mean,
who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, the original rights holders, I think they're aware, and they haven't done anything about it. So
right, no cease and desist, I guess. Yeah.
Well, at this point, I don't think there are a lot of people clamoring, or they're not making money off of it, right? Like either way, DVD sales are probably not going to be very hot for that movie, and I don't think people are buying it on iTunes.
How dare you, Dan? It's a classic.
hey, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to a lot of our childhoods. It made me want to be a ninja. That's
okay.
For sure.
Really?
Yeah.
It did. It honestly did.
It's very interesting. It's a weird coincidence, but Boomerang, the first film, came out in '92, and so did Three Ninjas.
Yeah, that's right.
Which are two things that you're currently working on, which I thought was an interesting coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah, the '90s, man. The '90s were wild.
So yeah, to start off with, basically for our podcast, it's fairly free form. I do have notes and stuff we can go off of, but generally I like to keep it fairly free and open. For, I guess, first time guests, we generally like to go through maybe your bio, kind of like your backstory, how you got into writing and all that. Does that sound good to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Dan, any questions you want to start with, or yeah?
Are you local from Los Angeles, or did you move here?
Yeah, I was born in Southern California. Pretty much been in SoCal my whole life, but I grew up in a city called Walnut, which is next to Rolling Heights and Diamond Bar, so about 30 miles east of downtown LA, and I was there from like the age of 5 all the way up until I went off to college. And then I just learned that James went to UC San Diego. I went there for my first year.
Did we talk
about it?
I think you mentioned it briefly, but yeah. Because you eventually transferred, right?
I eventually transferred to USC.
How dare you?
And it was actually because of
Fight on,
JP
that's
Gorin.
actually better school.
Dan, did you go to USC?
I went to both. I went to UC San Diego for undergrad and USC for grad.
Oh, there you go. You have that's my life right there. So it was actually Jean-Pierre Gorin who was like this crazy French professor. And if you went to USC for undergrad, you had this guy named Drew Casper. Well, J.P. Gorin was the crazy French version of a Drew Casper. I remember I was there when The Dark Knight just came out, and he just would not stop shitting on Christopher Nolan and The Dark Knight. He hated Nolan so much.
Gorin hated Nolan.
Hated
Yeah.
Nolan. But as like a young, 18-year-old kid, I was obsessed with this guy. Not Nolan, not even talking about Nolan. I'm talking about this crazy French professor. He would threaten kids in class. He would say meet me out of Wolf Hall or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And he would be like, meet me there and I'm gonna kick your ass.
Wow,
And I was obsessed with that energy. So I spent my first 2 quarters of UC San Diego just stalking him and going to all his office hours.
Oh, wow.
And we really developed a relationship. And I told him, and this is actually when I was at a crossroads, because at San Diego, I was studying human bio and I was on this pre-med track, but I was also doing visual arts media because in high school I was known as the film guy. So
you were in 6 college?
No, I was in ERC.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All those writing classes.
Yeah.
But it was Jean-Pierre Gorin that told me, if you really want to do film, you can't stay in San Diego. You got to transfer to USC, go to NYU, or go study in Paris, France. And he was like, I really recommend you go to France.
Says the Frenchman.
Yeah. So that's when I decided, I'm gonna shoot my shot. I'm gonna apply to USC, and if I get it, I'm gonna go, and if not, I will stay in San Diego and become a doctor. And that was essentially the deal I made with my parents.
Wow.
Because they, I come from a long line of doctors.
Okay.
Everyone on my mom's side of the family, they're all doctors. So
Wow.
my parents were both shocked to hear that I wanted to actually pursue film, even though my own father kind of works in entertainment. He's also like a movie producer.
He did the Mozart documentary. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Benjamin,
But yeah, even my dad, he kind of warned me against going into entertainment. He said, like, Henry, I've raised you, these 18 years. I kind of know what your personality is all about. It's gonna be really hard, and you might not be able to compete with Jewish people. Like, he straight up said that. But a deal was a deal. I got into USC after a year at San Diego. I went, and I really never looked back.
Wow. Did you like the climate at USC versus San Diego, or because you were now I guess you switched your major to film or like film production, or was it strictly writing?
I was film critical studies, so that was more the theory, history, and practice of film.
Okay.
Kind of like what
JP.
it would be like to study at UCLA or UC San Diego.
Okay.
And it's really interesting that you asked that question, because if you know anything about Walnut or Diamond Bar, it's actually predominantly Asian.
Yeah. So
I didn't experience a culture shock of being like an only Asian until I went to USC Film School. USC as a campus, there are a bunch of Asians for sure. But in the film school, in the film program, there were maybe, fewer than 10.
Yeah, and that's a shame. No.
It was those Asians that I would approach, and they wanted nothing to do with me because they felt like I was too fobby.
What?
Or like they were the ones that basically grew up their entire lives shedding their Asianness, and now pursuing film. So they would see someone like me, and I feel like this is getting really intellectual, but I feel like I would represent almost something that they were trying to get away from. And in that sense, they didn't want anything to do with me. But of course, it took some time, but I broke down those barriers, and they ended up becoming my friends. So that was people like Dan Chen, people like Philip Shum, and then Philip Shum shot Dan's short film Ella.
Okay. No.
And a few others as well. But so yeah, all that's to say, I experienced my culture shock when I went to USC, just seeing all these white people, not very many Asians, and the Asians that I did meet didn't really want anything to do with me. But I adapted, and overall, I think the experience was really cool at USC, and that's where I ultimately ended up meeting my partner on some of these projects.
Okay.
Jing Xiao.
Jing. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. One thing I kind of want. Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Did you connect with any of the non-Asian students? I mean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
To clarify, when he says partner to our listeners, he means like his writing partner, not his romantic partner. Yeah.
Yeah, working partner.
to be clear, sorry, but yeah.
But it's funny. Gosh, you guys are like mind readers. Yes, I definitely connected with the non-Asian people in my film school. We made a bunch of films, so of course, I made a lot of friends, and I actually dated a white girl at USC, so that was really cool, and we partnered on a lot of different things. So yeah, great experience overall. But I think when I first went, it was a big shock. It was a big shock to not be surrounded by a lot of Asians, because that's kind of all I knew.
Which is interesting, because like there is an Asian population at USC. I mean, there's a lot of the international students are from China and stuff like that. But but I guess you're saying in contrast to UCSD, or where you grew up, which was like 70, like crazy percentage Asian, right? Yeah. Because
he also majored at UCSD pre-med, and that's where all the Asians went. If he went to communications or something like that, I don't think there would be as many Asians there.
That's true.
That's true. One thing I would just want to circle back was J.P. Gorin. I took his. I wasn't a film major. I was an econ major, and then so I took my friend Byron, Byron Q, he's a filmmaker as well. He told me like, oh, you should check out his class, right? I'm like,
Oh, he did Bang Bang.
Yeah, he did Bang Bang. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. So he's UCSD alumni as well. And he's a big fan of JP as well. So I heard that like, well, I was like, I'm not enrolled in this class. Can I go to this class? He's like, dude, just show up. Just sit in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, you can do that? He's like, yeah. So I just sat in his class, and then I didn't do the assignments. I guess I could have maybe, but I just sat in his class and just listened to him talk. And like, what is he talking about? He's talking about Quentin Tarantino one time, and he's like saying, oh, this one student was telling me how awesome he's talking about like a student, how awesome Uma Thurman wear the Bruce Lee suit. And I just wanted to headbutt him like Zidane, you know, like the French soccer player. So anyways, that's just one memory I have of JP. I just like that energy, right?
That's definitely
that he's like he's I don't know how, I guess it's not professional, but like he's physically threatening students, but I don't think he ever acts on it. But it's just that energy of like how much passion he has for film, you know,
all the time.
Yeah. And one time we were watching like this German film about like telekinetic power, right? And somebody like exploded, and the effects were kind of cheesy, whatever. And some people the people were laughing, and then JP's like, everyone shut up, this is art, just quiet, watch, you know. And I was just like, oh damn, okay. Anyways, that's my
So Henry,
yeah.
so you went to USC and things like that. I mean, you took his advice and you never looked back, but do you think going to USC versus like UCLA, which was also in LA, was there like an advantage over going to USC versus UCLA? Or even NYU, do you think?
It's interesting. I mean, I'll handle the UCLA question first. Actually, I'll answer both by essentially saying that the biggest thing that I got out of USC, you know, it sounds cliche by now, but it really is that network. And
right.
A lot of the classmates that I was in class with, you know, we really rose up together. And it wasn't uncommon for me, even after I graduated, to connect with certain people that were also in my giant lecture halls that also went to USC. And, you know, the moment we would talk about like a Drew Casper, there would be this instant connection. Just like how James and I are bonding over J.P. Gorin right now, it would be me with other students talking about the classes that we would take at USC Film School. So I think like that, just being able to establish that instant common bond is incredible. And that's not to say that people from NYU don't get that with other NYU students, but I just think that, you know, USC, it's in LA, so like the location's there, and, you know, people that go there, they really are there with a specific purpose. Like they really want to work in film and TV and entertainment. So, you know, when you have that kind of energy, you're less likely to have as much fall off. Like I have friends who actually wanted to do film in San Diego, and I have friends who wanted to do film in certain other film schools. And the truth is, a lot of them ended up choosing different careers for one reason or another. But I feel like the ones that I went to USC with, they're still sticking with it. They're still staying true with the path that they set out.
It's kind of like how the environment maybe helps shape you, because like I remember at UCSD, like that was if you're doing film or something artistic, you're the odd man out, you know, kind of that feeling, because UCSD was like big bio pre-med track, you know, and because there's also like Scripps research that's close by, so like super heavy focused on academics or the sciences. STEM, yeah. Which was great. Was great meeting. Great meeting the theater people at UCSD, because then I felt like I found my these are my people, especially the Asian ones. So I kind of want to circle back. There was a lot of stuff. One thing if it's cool, I kind of want to get back to maybe like your upbringing a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you grew up in Walnut, and then predominantly Asian elementary and high school?
You know, like when I was that young,
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 50% Asian,
Oh, interesting.
mixed with some, you know, white, Latino. But I still remember always having Korean friends, always having Chinese friends around.
Interesting.
You know, I remember being on the playground and like learning my first Korean cuss words. You know, like that all happened when I was in elementary school and middle school.
Oh.
And also when I was in elementary school, you know, my parents both worked and my dad traveled a lot, so no one was there to pick me up from school to take me home. So
And you're the oldest brother, right? So,
and I'm the older brother, so my parents enrolled me in a Chinese school that wasn't on Saturdays. It was actually every day of the week after regular school.
oh shoot.
So I think that's also what helped me connect to my own cultural heritage, was being around a lot of other Chinese people,
Yeah.
but also very diverse Chinese people, meaning our Chinese school attracted students from all sorts of different districts. It was basically, if the parents didn't have time to take care of their kids, they would go to this Chinese school.
Okay.
And so I had like the
All the
gangsters,
latchkey kids, or
like the gangsters from Roland Heights, and like the, you know, nerds from Diamond Bar, like all sorts of different types of Chinese Americans, and like, you know, fobs from like, I don't know, Oxford would like even come, and we would all just hang out and play handball and tetherball on the playground.
Oh.
So it was definitely a big part of my upbringing, just being around a lot of different Asians.
This was 90s, right? Early 90s, or wait, how old are you? Okay, yeah, this is the 90s.
Yeah, like late 90s,
Yeah, late 90s.
early 2000s.
Okay. So that's interesting, because I'm kind of curious about like high school life for you, because a lot of your work actually is centered around young people coming up. From the spec stuff that I've read, Tino particularly, and I'm wondering, I guess, I think as a writer, do you draw from your own personal life? I mean, I'm assuming you do, but I'd like to hear like what your thoughts are. Like, first before we get to that, I guess, how was high school life for you? Were you fairly popular, or were you kind of like, you know, did you have your own clique? I'm curious about your social life in high school. Yeah.
I definitely was not popular. I had a lot of friends that I really trusted, and we did have our own little clique, but I was not one of the popular kids. Whereas my younger brother, even though he's 5 years younger than me, he definitely was the popular kid, and he was nominated, or he was voted his homecoming king of his class.
Oh.
But for me, I hung out with a lot of Cantonese people, I feel like, and I mean, it was just kind of, we just kind of did our own thing.
Okay.
And in terms of like extracurriculars, I did the Mustang Update, which was like our school news. So I would film skits and segments, and as like a part-time job, you know, I never really waited tables or worked at a boba shop. My thing was I shot the performance videos for our band, choir, dance team, things like that. And I would edited and made, I don't know, like $12 an hour, which was really good at that time.
Yeah.
I was very happy with that.
So you're like a one-man video production team, I guess, or yeah.
I had this guy, I would probably consider him the very first mentor I've ever had in my life. His name was Chad Young, white dude, really, really great guy. I know he's a great husband, a great father, and he really taught me so many things in production. Like, I think before him, I didn't know what the rule of thirds was.
Okay.
And that was literally him coming into our broadcast class and giving us like a quick little lesson. And then I just spoke to him after class, and he told me about, you know, his company, Cinematic Edge, and he really recruited me, took me under his wing, and showed me how to shoot some of these things. And eventually I was kind of on my own, left to do it.
Was that kind of your first maybe introduction to the arts, really, or was there something earlier, or like, what was kind of like your first, like, oh, I kind of want to keep doing something like this?
I think he was a big part of it. And I mentioned that my dad worked in entertainment. So he was a cameraman in Shanghai. He worked at Shanghai TV station. And then he immigrated to the United States in the mid-'80s. And of course, he didn't do anything in film production. His first job was working at a diner flipping eggs. So both my parents came to the United States and had to start from scratch. But eventually, they saved up enough money. My dad was able to buy one of those really old giant Betacam cameras that maybe cost like $100,000. And with that, he was able to film a lot of, you know, documentaries, commercials, and other random odd pieces of content. And that did really, really well for a while. So that was always around my life.
Cool.
He stopped doing that after digital came around and everyone had better, smaller digital cameras, and all the money he earned, he invested right back into the business, and he bought like all this old school analog editing equipment that like took up an entire room, and all that stuff like became worthless overnight. So that kind of ruined him, and he had to really pivot. But even so, just that video production side of things was always a part of my life. So I always saw it. I was always intrigued by cameras. And my dad, I still think he's an amazing photographer. So I would learn bits and pieces from him. But otherwise, I think Chad Young really taught me from like a very formal perspective of how to do things, like how to frame up a shot, you know, how to connect an XLR cable, you know, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
Because he was one of those guys that bought those digital cameras and used digital editing software and pushed my dad out of business. No hate on him. It's just, that's just how it was.
That's the wave,
Yeah.
It made me think about, and then I guess J.P. Gorin was like kind of like the next big influence for you, like to go when you went to UC, because in high school, did you feel like academic pressure to like, oh, I have to follow this, I don't know, play like the good son path of like, let me get like a regular, let me follow my mom's uncles or, you know, their path of being a doctor? Was that kind of like the impetus of going to UC San Diego at first?
Yeah. My dream school was UCLA.
Oh.
And I didn't get in. UC San Diego was the best.
Dude, fuck UCLA.
UC San Diego
I didn't get in either.
That was the best school I got into.
Oh, you got rejected too, Dan?
Of course, yeah.
For undergrad?
Yeah, it's for the best, you know.
Hey, that's what us three have in common.
I also got rejected from Berkeley. I kind of like Berkeley too, but anyways.
I like the idea of Berkeley, but I don't think I would have gone. If I got into UCLA, I would be there in a heartbeat.
Oh wow. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But I think for me, especially with my high school, it was very competitive. And I think if you did well in school, you were cool. Like that helped with your social game. And you know, it was like the people that were really, really smart and got good grades, but appeared like they weren't trying. Like, I feel like those were the real popular kids. And like, just to kind of paint a picture, the cheerleaders, the demographic of the cheerleaders was a little bit more like Filipina and Latina. Whereas the dance team, those were all the Chinese, Taiwanese girls. Huh. And I feel like they were way more popular. So like, even that paradigm, just being different from a traditional high school, I thought made Walnut very, very interesting. And like our high school's dance team, they were exceptional, but they were really able to balance that extracurricular with their academics. Like they were all extremely, extremely smart.
Okay. That sounds like a lot to balance though. Like, yeah.
It was. So yeah.
There's like some pressure I'm like already hearing this. I feel like, oh, I remember like the high school pressure of like doing all this extracurricular and then pad your like essay, your college applications and stuff. And yeah, I remember that kind of. My high school wasn't that pressured, but like okay, I feel where you're coming from. Yeah,
it was hard. It was a lot of pressure, and I remember it was a very important question. Like, were you going to go on the IB path or you were going to go on the AP path?
Yeah.
I think a lot of my friends ended up doing IB, and I dropped down to AP, and I feel like that's the kind of decision that you'll get some judgment on.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and like not just from your friends, not just from your peers, but from their parents. Okay. Like, oh, why did your son drop at IB? You know, like
what's
those
IB?
kind of.
Yeah, was it because that might be a little bit after us. Yeah, IB.
IB is the International Baccalaureate program. It's like it's like a, gosh, how would I even pitch this? Just like a
so
very
it's a level above AP.
I think it's like a different path, but it definitely prepares you for college in a slightly different way. Like AP, you're just legit taking college level classes in terms of the curriculum and the standards. Whereas I feel like IB, they put you on a specific path. Like everyone that takes IB have essentially the same classes and the same extracurricular. No, not extracurricular, but like everyone in IB has to take a class called Theory of Knowledge, TOK, for example. Okay. And that's a class that you have to be in IB to have access to. Whereas AP, you can kind of mix and match the different classes you want to take. IB, I feel like you choose what your higher level is going to be, whether it be biology or history, and then everything else kind of fits into pieces. But like for the rest of it, it's like fairly structured in terms of what you're going to take. So it was definitely a different path, and that was not the right path for me. So what I did is I just like loaded up on AP classes, and I took a bunch of classes at my community college, and I think that really paid off, especially in San Diego, because there were so many students that, you know, the priority of being able to sign up for classes was a huge thing.
Yeah.
But because I had so many AP credits and like class credits from Mount Sac, it really got me some good registration time. So I was able to take everything I wanted with like a
JP's class, I guess, or
yeah,
that's dope. So you dated a white girl? What's up with that? So let's trajectory. Walnut, grew up in Walnut. You went to a semi-competitive high school, it sounds like. Yeah,
very competitive.
Very competitive.
We had, like, I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say we were in the double digits in terms of valedictorians. So this is like everyone had a 4.0.
Jesus.
And I don't even remember how they ended up choosing the one final valedictorian, but they for sure all had straight A's.
Okay. So you grew up, and then you went in elementary school, you went to Chinese school. So it's interesting because you saw both sides. You saw like kind of the gangster Asians, and you also saw the over-competitive, overachieving Asians too.
I definitely did.
In the SoCal area. And then you went to UC San Diego, met JP, you know what, fuck it, I want to be a filmmaker, and then go to USC. Culture shock.
I mean, yeah, that culture shock, it hit, but I really still ended up finding my community. And it was this one advanced class called 480. So this is like the undergrad thesis. And basically production students would take all the jobs that were really wanted. So, you know, obviously writer, director, producer, cinematographer, like those were all the coveted positions.
Sure.
Editing and sound, also coveted. But you know what no one wanted to do? No one wanted to do production design. So they would always need to go to other majors to find the production designers. So I think when I was a sophomore or junior, no, definitely not my first year. When I was a junior at USC, I took that class, and I did production design, and like that really helped me find this crew of people that I really loved, and some of the people in that crew, like I still kick it with today. Like the producer on our project, like now she's working for, oh gosh, I'm forgetting her name. The creator of Smilf, and you know, like the DP, like now he's running like now he owns his own like camera rental shop, and he's doing really, really well with that. Shout out to Evidence. And yeah, like that was just like a crew that I really, really loved. And you know, you're making that film together, you're in the trenches, and of course, like the times that you do get to relax a little bit, you're gonna go to like the parties with them. And I think that's how I started to like meet more people and become more comfortable around other people, because we all had this like this common passion, and that was a love for film. So it doesn't matter where you're from, if you bond over a filmmaker, like that's going to be just a common language. And then I was just like on one of these other like advanced films, and I met this girl. I think she was like the set photographer, and we started chatting, and you know, we started dating after a little while. But she was like, I thought her taste in films were like really, really dope. She was the one that like turned me on to Iwai Shunji, and like I had never seen, you know, All About Lily Choo Choo before her, but like I remember watching that with my ex, and you know, we made like two. Do you remember when like they used to do the Doritos Super Bowl commercial competitions? Yeah. So Sasha and I, Sasha's the name of my ex. We shot 2 of those commercials for 1 year, and one of them was actually with the Fung brothers. And it was like, they were just like really fun, and we co-directed them together, and we co-edited them together, and they were just like a lot of fun to make, you know. So there was nothing that made me happier than being able to work on projects like that with someone that I really cared about.
Yeah. And another thing you brought up about USC is about these other Asian creatives kind of not wanting to have anything to do with you at the start. I mean, is there? Well, this is my conjecture. Let me know if I'm beating around the right path. But like, is somehow Asianness and creativeness, like, are they sort of like, they can't exist in the same space for some reason for some people, or like, why do you think that was? Why was that sort of was that kind of bare, or did they see you as competition? Maybe I'm just kind of curious about that. Yeah.
The truth is, I just think they thought I wasn't very cool. Like all the like shedding of the Asianness and like me representing something that they try to get rid of in their own lives. I think that could potentially be a stretch. Like that might not be the truth, but that is how I intellectualize it. I just think they didn't see me as someone very cool. Which is totally fair.
That's messed up, man.
I can easily come off as just like some nerdy Asian dude. So I don't blame them one bit. But
did Dan do that to you? Dan Chen?
I don't know, man. But
how dare he?
All I can just say is like facts, and the facts are
facts.
When I saw Dan Chen, I was like, this guy's a cool motherfucker.
Oh.
And I saw like how he was able to like command a set. And I think I met him as a camera operator. Like he was operating on one of those 480 classes or one of those 480 advanced films.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dude, I really like the way this guy works. Same with his DP, Phillips. Like I just thought he was a really dope cinematographer and really knew how to carry himself. So I think it was just like, I just respected them a lot. And you know, so maybe like when I approached them for the first time or like introduced myself, maybe I was just like a bumbling idiot. Like who knows? But the fact is, they were really cool and they were very good at what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of respect for them.
That's cool, man. And from at USC, then did you discover like, because your focus now is writing, it seems like, and did that focus or that passion for writing that blossom at USC, or was that kind of afterwards, or where did you think that happened?
I mean, I still have directing aspirations. It's just right now I'm really focusing on writing. You know, James, you know, I went off to Argentina and shot a short film earlier this year.
So Henry, he went to South America, Argentina, and shot a short film about K-pop, a South American, let me get this correct, a Korean Argentinian woman.
Yeah, Korean
Argentinian who had aspirations of being a K-pop star, or has aspiration to be a K-pop star.
Yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah.
Korean Argentine. You know, that's like her secret dream. And if you know anything about the country, you know, K-pop has essentially abandoned Argentina just because their economy has kind of been in shambles as of late. So whenever they tour even the smallest K-pop groups, they'll hit Brazil, they'll hit Peru, but they'll skip over Argentina altogether.
What?
And that's not going to stop the fans. You know, if you look at the countries down there, Argentina has a huge K-pop fan community. So all they really want is a little bit of recognition, and they're willing to still hold like all these festivals just for themselves. They're willing to, you know, gather and like, you know, practice the dances just so that they can film it and put it on YouTube. And all they want is like a little bit of recognition. Like that would make their entire year. So I really wanted to follow someone in that community and see like what their life is like. So yeah, that's essentially what the short is about.
Okay. But yeah, about
back to like the whole writing thing. Like, yeah, so I always saw myself as a writer director. You know, I think I was in film school and wanted to, you know, direct my first feature right out of the gate, have that under my belt by the age of 25. And of course, like I was in for a really
like Citizen Kane kind of style. Yeah.
And the truth is, I wrote a few shorts while I was at USC, and ironically, Jing and I actually wrote a short film while we were at USC. But yeah, I wrote a few shorts that weren't very good, the ones that I wrote on my own at least. And then, you know, post college just kind of swept me away. You know, I worked at CAA for 3 years, the talent agency. And, you know, there really wasn't that much time to write until I want to say my 3rd year into the job. And that's when I linked up with this guy named Ivan Sang. And I was like, you know, I have this idea, like, can we work on this together? And then we started meeting up twice a week. I feel like we never missed one. We would meet right here, right at that table. We would order Volcano, and we would just like, yeah, break the story. And then we wrote a feature about being able to record your dreams and what happens when one of those dream recordings is swapped with someone else's. So it was like a really interesting little grounded sci-fi feature, and we finished it. Like, I haven't visited it in a very, very long time, but you know, that was a fun little story. So like, that was when I really got back into writing, and it was well timed because after that I was pretty much ready to leave CAA. I knew that I didn't want to be an agent.
And you realized, so you actually had some aspirations to be an agent before, kind of.
I mean, I think when you work at a place like that, naturally you're gonna drink the Kool-Aid a little bit. It's
CAA, William Morris, or
yeah,
it's one
CAA, WME, UTA, any of those agencies, you kind of feed into that lifestyle a little bit, and not everyone does, but I think for me, I definitely did drink some of the Kool-Aid, and I thought it was really cool. Like, I thought that what the agents were doing in terms of advocating for, you know, young filmmakers, I thought that was really cool. Especially the group that I wasn't an assistant in this group, but I was an intern for this group. It was called Film Finance at the time, and what they would do is they would take the passion projects of the agency's clients and find ways to essentially finance these indie darling passion projects, and those would be the ones that would go to Sundance and sell for, you know, big amounts of money. So I thought that was really cool because I got to see how they really packaged a movie and how they could access financing outside of the studio system. Like, that was all super educational for me because I never even knew that existed. I thought, like, if you were gonna independently finance a movie, you just had to, you know, max out your credit cards like Justin Lin did.
Oh no, don't do that.
So like, to see that there was an infrastructure in place and there were these financiers who not only were they financing independent films, but they actually saw it as a legitimate business model. Like, I thought that was amazing.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, like, what they would say is, you know, working at an agency, that really is like grad school, and I wholeheartedly believe that. So I didn't get my MFA in anything, but I feel like I did get a master's at CA.
And for then, so the writing kind of took off for you with your mentor Ivan. Kind of like, you left CAA, and then where did you want to do after that? Like, were you kind of like were you like, you know what, I'm gonna bet on myself, I'm gonna hunker down, just write? Or what was that kind of transition like?
I think writing with Ivan reminded me that I do want to be on the creative side of things, and I knew I had to leave CAA to really take that step. So it really reignited the writer-director aspirations in me. So I knew that I had to leave CAA for a very specific job. Like, I wasn't going to be one of those development folks at a production company. I knew very specifically that I wanted to work for a filmmaker. And there were a lot of really great ones that came across my desk. Like, I'm going to name drop a little bit right now, but
name drop.
I remember J.J. Abrams was an opportunity because his assistant, Morgan, who I met on one of those USC thesis films, because Morgan was about to leave to shoot her first feature, and she knew that she needed someone to replace the second assistant for JJ. Mark Webb was an opportunity. Drew Goddard was an opportunity. There were a lot of really, really incredible filmmakers that fortuitously, like, I had a chance to work for, but there was one specifically that I wanted to hold out for, and that was Kathryn Bigelow. So when she called one day and said, Henry, I'm looking for an assistant. Do you know anybody? I was like, I would love to raise my hand and be considered. Like, I would love to volunteer as tribute, essentially. So she got really excited by that. And I should set up by saying my boss that I worked for at CAA, he was this hotshot agent in motion picture literary, so representing writers, directors, and producers for film. And he worked with, from filmmakers like Edgar Wright to Joe Cornish, as well as screenwriters like John Logan, Tony Kushner, Peter Strawn, Stephen Knight. He just represented incredible people. George C. Wolfe, like just amazing folks. But Kathryn was one of his clients, and he was with her during the time of Hurt Locker. So he was at her side for a very, very amazing time in her career. So when Kathryn came calling, I was extremely excited. It took a while, but Brian gave me his blessing. So then I went off to work for Kathryn, and from her I learned so much. I saw Detroit from beginning to end with her, but I always tell people that what I got from her was really how her mind works. Like, she really approaches art from an activist's perspective. So, she's never going to be someone that you'll catch at the Women's March or, picketing. It's really her art that she protests through. And that was a very, very valuable lesson for me, because it made me question myself and think about what values do I stand for, and what do I want to say about this world? Like, what are the injustices that I see around me? And that really birthed the initial nugget that eventually became Salvage. The most important lesson was really seeing, making this work, making a film. It takes so much work and energy, and you really pour your soul into it. But if it's not really saying anything, then what's the point? Like, I think that's what I really got from Kathryn. Everything that she makes, especially now, like, it has to leave an impact. It has to change the world in some way. And I think, like, to strive for that is extremely important. And it's something that I try to do in all my work now.
Because Detroit it's massive, man. That's like it's very epic. Like, just from the opening shots, like, there's a lot of stuff happening just in those couple minutes, like the riots and stuff. And I thought, I'm just, as a filmmaker, I'm just like, dang, logistically, how are they pulling this all off? And like,
it's so impressive.
It's crazy.
It is so impressive.
Yeah. The crowd management, and then of course when we get to the Hotel Algiers, it's more contained. But then, all the stuff happening around, it's intense. Yeah.
To make that film, like, to pull off what Kathryn pulled off, I'm just amazed. I'm really so in awe. And I think she references this one film that has really become important for me as well. It's called The Battle of Algiers. Okay. Did you see that in JP's class?
Maybe. What's it about? Or
it's a black and white film. Gosh, the filmmaker's name is escaping me, but it's essentially it's the Muslim community in Algiers.
Okay.
And how, the French were really racist against them. So there was a major conflict, and that led to a lot of terrorism.
Oh, geez.
By the Muslims. But when you watch the film, you're really in the perspective of the Muslim characters, and by the end of it, yes, they're committing acts of terrorism, but you understand their cause and you really empathize towards everything that they're doing. Just a really, really remarkable piece of filmmaking, and I know it's inspired many filmmakers, but I watched that film, and I really understand Kathryn better as well, as not just a filmmaker, but also as a person who is choosing, like, her next subject. I definitely recommend that film. I think when I watched it in JP's class, I was too young, I was too immature to really appreciate a film like that. But I actually rewatched it recently at AFI, and yeah, it just blew me away. It destroyed me. That film destroyed me.
What made you hold out for Kathryn in particular, you think? Those are some big names that you dropped there.
I mean, here, what I'll say is, because my boss at CAA represented her, I already had this relationship with her. But I think just kind of being in Brian's ears, or sorry, just hearing what Kathryn was working on, in terms of like the way that she was thinking about like her next projects that she wanted to pursue, I knew that those were the kind of films that I would really benefit from, getting any type of osmosis, in terms of being able to hear. Sorry, let me re-answer that question. Why did I hold out for Kathryn? I feel like working at CAA and working for Brian, I was able to kind of see the projects that she was approaching next. And when I think about the kind of projects that she really wants to make, it was a no-brainer. Like everything that was on her slate interested me way more than the next Star Wars movie. So
Yo, shout out to J.J. Abrams. What's up?
So I think the choice was very clear, and everyone in the building knew that was the director I wanted to work for, and the timing just worked out. So I'm very, very lucky. I'm very, very grateful for that experience.
Yeah.
And then how did you transition from that job to what you're doing these days?
Yeah, so 2 years, I worked for Kathryn for 3 years. 2 years into it, Trump got elected. Maybe just like a year into it. But in my second year working for Kathryn, that's when I really started to ask myself that question. Like, what were these, what around me was I not happy with? And
because Detroit was released in 2017, so production was
yeah, and this was happening like even when we were even before they went off to shoot Detroit. I was already asking myself these questions. And I remember Trump was not very nice to Asians. He was not very nice. And
one rally, he was like, an Asian guy asked a question. They asked him, "Hey, where are you from?" And he's like, "Well, I'm from Colorado, whatever area they were in." And Trump's like, "Oh, you know what I mean." And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like a presidential candidate is gonna talk this way to like Asians? Like, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, he did not treat immigrants nicely at all. So I really thought about it, and I think like the one way that I could do anything, like create any type of ripple, was through representation. And like that word gets thrown around a lot, but for me it was, I got to create a piece of content that is actually going to put Asians on screen in a meaningful way. That means like not leaning into any sort of stereotype. So I think the first thing that I started thinking about was, well, how have we as Asian Americans infiltrated American culture? And I thought a lot about the tech space, fashion with like Alexander Wang and Bobby Hundreds and what these guys are all doing. But then very quickly it became about food. And I thought a lot about David Chang. I thought a lot about Roy Choi. I knew those guys were going to have shows of their own. They were going to have biopics on their lives. It was only a matter of time. And so I knew I wanted, my show to be about food. And I pitched that exactly to Jing. I remember we were at Highland Bowl, eating pizza. And then the next day he gave me a call and he said, "Henry, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I definitely agree. And I would love to write this with you." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So yeah, like of course, that was like a nugget of an idea. With Jing, like we were really able to deepen the themes and enrich and inject this emotional core into the story about these millennial hustlers who are trying to start up their own brick and mortar restaurant in Los Angeles. And then we wrote it. We spent the first half of 2017 writing it. after it was in a shape that we were comfortable sending out, we sent it to like all my old CA connections, and essentially some people read it, a lot of people just ignored it flat out, but the people that did read it, they gave very broad notes, and it's no shade to my friends. Like, I get it, they're all busy, they have their own scripts that they got to read for their jobs, for their bosses, and then when a friend sends you their script, it goes to the bottom of the pile. So like, I totally get it, but the script really didn't go anywhere. And Jing and I, like, we looked at each other and we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? Like, do we like find another project to write?
And at this point, you're living off of savings, I'm assuming, or did you have like a job at the time?
I was still working for Kathryn. Jing was still directing commercials in China and the United States.
Oh, wow.
And then, we were like, okay, well, what else can we do? So we continued to write the show Bible beyond the pilot. So the future episodes. This is all for Salvage.
Salvage, yeah.
And once we had that, we were like, okay, what else? What else can we do? What else can we do to like make a splash? Because another document is just gonna have the same fate as a script. So we debated a lot of things. We were like, okay, do we try to like put some money together and just shoot the pilot ourselves? Do we maybe shoot a few scenes and cut together this sizzle reel or like a trailer for the show? And then very quickly we realized, and actually we were inspired by two of our friends, Tony Rettenmeyer and Joelle Taylor, who are like two of the hottest screenwriters and directors in Hollywood right now. They had a show called Bertha Cool, a high school show, and they put their entire show Bible on this visual, interactive website, and you could scroll through it. It was really, really well designed. You could listen to the soundtrack to really get a vibe for what the show they were trying to create was. And I looked at that and I really thought about our characters and how these are like young hustlers who use Instagram and social media to really promote themselves. And I was like, okay, what if we put our entire Bible on Instagram? And I remember we were at Jing's house in Highland Park, and he was like, that's amazing, how do we do it? And he pulled out like 10 sheets of blank paper, and we literally started drawing squares, like trying to lay out exactly what we were gonna do. And we like tried a few iterations. The first few like didn't really work, and then Jing had an amazing idea. He was like, okay, Salvage is based on our real chef friend named DJ. Does he have any notebooks that he scribbles on? And then we went over to his loft in downtown LA, and he gave us like 4 of his notebooks, and we scanned those pages, and those pages became the backdrop to our Instagram feed. And once we had that, that really made the entire layout come alive, because
sorry,
that's
I'm gonna
what
get
made
distracted.
it
I'm gonna look it up right now, but
go for it. That's what really made it come alive. And once we had that, and the rest of the images kind of came to place,
Salvage,
that was it.
Salvage the show on Instagram.
Yeah, man, that was a solid month of work. Like in these squares, you can listen to the soundtrack, you can read the bits and pieces of the Bible that we had written, and if you're really careful, you can find some of the other Instagram accounts that we created. So it goes several layers deep. But jumping past all that, we made this Instagram Bible that we were really proud of. But we didn't know how Hollywood was going to react. So to all the people that didn't read the script, we sent another email, and that was just the link to the Instagram. So if you didn't have 30 minutes to read our pilot, fine. You surely have 5 seconds to click this Instagram link. And sure enough, it worked. Like, all of a sudden, people were opening this Instagram, and they were like, okay, what is this show? Because at that time, I think the only thing that was on the air was maybe Fresh Off the Boat. And our show could not be farther than Fresh Off the Boat in terms of content and tone and everything. So once they saw the Instagram, once they saw what kind of vibe we were going for, they were all intrigued. And eventually I sat down with my friend who's at an amazing company, she read it. She was really into it. Asked us if it would be cool to share it with her manager friend. We said, of course. It got shared with the manager. The manager called us in for a meeting right away, signed us, and then really started everything for us. So, I mean, Jing and I, we really owe a lot to, definitely to Salvage. Like, I mean, the writing has to be good. If like you had a killer Instagram show Bible, and then the script as like the follow up is trash, like it doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere. So of course, like the script had to be good. And then yeah, like our managers got us aligned with several producers. We ended up going with a company called Make Ready. Make Ready developed it with us. We did a few rewrites, and then we pitched it around town, and we're waiting to see where it ultimately lands.
Yeah, as someone who's been down the rabbit hole of that Instagram, it's multi-layered, because each Instagram account, each main character have their own section as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't get that far, man. So I really appreciate you for diving deep.
I'm like a geek about that kind of stuff, because I was like, for our listeners, Henry and I, we met through the mentorship program for the Taiwanese American Film Festival.
We probably should have started with that.
Yeah. So I can add this in the beginning. I mean, yeah. So
No, dude.
Henry and I. So basically, I had applied to this pitch competition for the film festival and got accepted. And what part of the program is that you get connected with a mentor for 6 weeks to work on a pitch to be presented at the film festival in November. And this was in October at the time when we first met. So I got linked up with Henry, and I think they did I spoke to the Cindy, kind of the coordinator for this mentorship program, and they spent a lot of time kind of looking at the content of both creators and trying to find a good match. And it's kind of like surreal, because going through Salvage, Tino, and Three Ninjas, I could see a lot of themes with my script or my ideas and connecting with Henry's. So I think they did a great job connecting us together. But one thing I want to talk about was the reason I went down that rabbit hole was like, first of all, I want to make sure like, okay, where's this guy coming from? I kind of get a feel for who you were, right? Because sharing writing or sharing creative projects, it can be very vulnerable, because in a sense it's an expression of who you are, right? I think there is a truth in saying that you have to have a thick skin in this business, but what's also true to that is that a lot of writers or creators are very sensitive people. And so
I definitely am one.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's good to have a thick skin, but at the same time, we're sensitive as well. And I wanted to be very honest with someone. If I'm going to be very honest and vulnerable with someone, I want to kind of see where they're coming from. So that's kind of, I went down the rabbit hole of Salvage the show. I was like, okay, nice. Like, so like Fresh Off the Boat is kind of like Panda Express or Orange Chicken. And then, but Salvage the show, I got the feeling like, okay, this is more like gritty, like, Kogi, or this is more like urban, kind of like, I guess the word you like to use is subculture, right? And I was like very attracted to these characters. And then when I read Tina, I was like, oh shit, okay, I see where this guy's coming from.
Yeah, and it's no shade to Fresh Off the Boat. It's just...
Nah, you can throw shade, it's fine.
No, it's like... first of all, I don't watch Fresh Off the Boat, so
Eddie Huang doesn't watch Fresh Off the Boat either.
It's been canceled, so...
It has been canceled. My friend Kyle Lau writes on this final season, so, I don't want to spend this time, like, maligning the show. It's just, I knew right off the bat that tonally Salvage, as well as any TV show I ever create, is never going to be a broadcast type show, because I want to be able to take my characters to very uncomfortable places that broadcast is just never going to scratch. So just on that conceit alone, I just knew that philosophically Salvage was never going to be like Fresh Off the Boat. And if you read the script with that preconception, you were going to be in for a rude awakening. essentially.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, no shade to Fresh Off the Boat. It's kind of like looking at the evolution of word representation, right? Yeah, it seems that for minorities, one of the first steps for for deeper or more representation is through broadcast or through comedy. These seem to be the kind of like the first avenues that are open to us, and then yeah, as because of Fresh Off the Boat, there were other shows. There was like Dr. Ken, and now I think it paved the way for like Constance Wu to play in Crazy Rich Asians. So I think this is all part of the evolution. So like no shade. It's all steps I think in the right direction. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, from Salvage, then where did like Three Ninjas or Tino, like what's kind of the order of these other projects coming up, or was it kind of simultaneous, or?
Yeah, and just to put a perspective on the timeline, we made the Bible late, like in the fall of 2017. I was still working for Kathryn. Maybe around February of 2018 is when my job with Kathryn came to an end, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. So of course my parents were like, "Go work at Facebook." Like I hear they're hiring. I heard Mark Zuckerberg is hiring.
Is that easy? Yeah.
But yeah, so like their advice was find another full-time job. Go work at a studio. Get another job where you're not going to be worried about your paycheck.
They still weren't convinced yet.
Wow,
yet. Even we were working with Kathryn. Okay, all right.
But for me, it was really important that I felt like Salvage was really going to pop off very, very soon. And I just couldn't lock myself down to another full-time job. Like I know that my heart wouldn't have been in it. So I decided, I'm just going to go unemployed for a little while. And once again, that never would have happened unless I made a deal with my parents. So the deal was I'm going to go unemployed from February to July. I'm going to give it until July. And if I am able to sell Salvage, then great. I'm going to go create this show. And if not, then starting in July, I will start looking for another full-time job. I will knock on Mark Zuckerberg's door and figure out a way to sneak into Facebook.
They have good lunches, anyways.
But yeah, my parents said okay, and they let me really go all in on Salvage. And I think that was the time when Jing and I started thinking about some other ideas. That might have been the time, or maybe even earlier, but like we wrote this like Master of None spec that followed I forgot the Asian guy's
Kelvin, the
Kelvin new character.
Yeah, Kelvin's the actor, yeah.
It was an episode on like him losing his job and like what that looked like. And it was ironically that was an episode where him and Lena Waithe's character really bonded, because that was interesting to us. Like that would have been an interesting episode.
Yeah, you don't really see the two of them interact too much, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we started thinking about the initial nugget that eventually became Tino, which is our high school murder mystery. So that started off as like a different title, and it was very primarily focused on a personal high school story of mine. I won't go into the details, but essentially I was in a catfish relationship before catfishing was a thing. Or not before catfishing was a thing, but before it was called catfishing. And I wanted to write a show about that, where like a main character is catfished and he spends the entire season trying to find out the identity of this person. And eventually this catfish infiltrates the surrounding high schools and ruins several different lives. But long story short, like that project became very, very interesting. And once again, Jing came in and like injected it with some incredible themes. He came up with an amazing setting. So instead of setting it somewhere in Southern California, like a high school that I grew up in, we decided to move it up north to a location that James is more familiar with. Somewhere like a Cupertino. So like our fictionalized version of Cupertino. So that show is called Tino. But eventually, yeah, like around July, like as my time was running out in the deal that I struck with my parents, is when we got our managers. And once our managers started getting Salvage out, like I really was kind of able to make it by like July, August. I still wasn't paid yet, but we knew that our project was at a studio home, and we were going to get paid to start doing some rewrites on it. So
Wow.
it was really, really good timing. And we also knew that we had other ideas. Like, it wasn't just going to be Salvage. It was also going to be, this high school show. It was also going to be, some of these features that we were cooking up. So yeah, like that was awesome. And one of the early fans of Salvage is this guy named Rishi Rajani. He was working at this company called Studio 8 at the time. And he was always a fan of Salvage, even from the very, very early days. He knew that his company wouldn't really jump on board, but he was getting ready to work for Lena Waithe. So he was about to leave Studio 8 to become Lena Waithe's executive. And when that was about to happen, he hit us up to catch up. And we sat down, and he brought us this opportunity. And that was to staff on the sequel as a series of Boomerang, the beloved film from 1992. And that was
Starring Eddie Murphy, Robin Gibbons,
yeah, Halle Berry,
Halle
young,
Berry, yeah.
Young Chris Rock. Like, they were just that cast is stacked, and it meant a lot to so many people, as I learned. But yeah, Rishi brought us that opportunity. Jing and I, obviously, we never staffed in a writer's room before, so that was like very, very exciting to us. We interviewed with Rishi, Lena, and our showrunner Ben Corey Jones, and got the job. So we were in that room basically late 2018, and it was an amazing experience. So like after that, finally, my parents were like, "Okay, you're kind of doing this, but what about your insurance? When are you gonna get insurance?" That whole thing. So yeah, that like led to Boomerang, and then we did like this rewrite on a basketball movie that LeBron James was producing.
Oh.
Through his company, and that was called Hustle for Legendary. That was a wild experience. That took us basically to the end of 2018, and I guess that project has since left Legendary and is now set up at Netflix. And then also during that time, like there was this producer that was working for Mark Platt, who was trying to get a reboot of Three Ninjas off the ground. And when that email came in through our manager, I was like, no way are they going to reboot this movie, because it really did mean a lot to my childhood. I saw it a little bit later in life, but I just couldn't believe it. Because
How old were you when you first saw it?
I don't know, man, like an early teen, like maybe I was like 14 years old or something like that. It came out when I was 2, so I definitely didn't see it when I was 2 years old.
Sure, yeah.
But it just like that movie, it felt like Home Alone, like
yeah, he even
it just
does
like
the
really
whole, like,
yeah,
he
it's
even-
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. It was in like that wheelhouse, that kind of tapestry. So I was like, okay, well, what is that reboot gonna look like? And I was actually ready to just pass.
Wow.
And Jing was like, dude, why are you gonna pass when like you don't even give it a shot? Like, let's at least take a meeting. So we went in there.
Oh, so you came out like, oh, how dare they make a reboot? Or
I was like, there's just no way. It wasn't even like, how dare they, as in, these guys are gonna fuck it up. It was more just like, that movie meant so much to me that I don't even want to touch it.
Wow. Okay, I feel you. Yeah.
So, and who knows? I might still screw it up. Who knows? But I think that Jing was right. We went in. We took the meeting, and pitched them just like a very personal story of ours, and a lot of Asian American son of immigrants, which was the lunchbox moment. And he loved it. And he thought that we would be approaching whatever take we came up with from a place of true authenticity.
Right, because the original, sorry to interrupt, but like the original Three Ninjas, they're supposed to be a quarter Asian,
Yeah, they're supposed to, but the actors are definitely all white.
The mom's supposed to be half white, half Asian,
Yep.
half white, yeah.
Yep. 3 white kids getting trained by their Japanese grandfather to become ninjas.
Not problematic at all, yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, Jing and I, like, we have a fun way to flip all that now. So we're really excited about our take. And yes, I feel like that was also 2018. So 2018 was a pretty wild year for us. We went into Atlanta to watch them shoot our episode of Boomerang.
Oh yeah, which I watched. I really enjoyed that episode actually.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. I've only seen the pilot and that episode, and I don't know. I enjoyed it more than the pilot, to be honest. Yeah, because pilot's probably just setting stuff up, but
No, I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
really came full circle because the director of our episode was that guy, Jewel Taylor, who wrote that Bible for that high school show that really inspired the Instagram. And Jewel was also a USC student. He was in the grad program. So was his partner, Tony. And yeah, once again, Jewel is like the hottest director in Hollywood right now. They're like the hottest screenwriters in Hollywood right now. It's unreal. So it was cool to go to Atlanta, hang out with Rishi, hang out with Jewel, hang out with Tony. And I'll never forget, we were like in the hotel room and Tony and Jewel were not stressed about directing the episode of Boomerang. They were stressed about Space Jam because they wrote Space Jam.
Oh, wow.
So like they're working on like this reboot that is like super epic, or I guess there's like a sequel. I don't know. And then of course like we're doing this reboot. So I feel like Jewel is like they're just always like a few steps ahead of us, but that's all good. That's all good.
If for our listeners who don't know, the episode that Henry wrote is called Housekeeping. It's episode 8, season 1 for Boomerang on BET.
Which I love. Real quick.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we initially were slotted to pitch episode 4, which we were really excited about because we could write our episode and then for the rest of the contract we could basically be chilling and just like pitching ideas. So like we wanted to get it done as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And then something happened. I don't know if somebody finessed their way into that episode 4 slot or what, but we were all of a sudden pushed to episode 8. But then I thought about, in Chinese, like 8 is obviously way luckier than 4. So I was not mad. I was no longer mad at that. And I think episode 8 was really a good place for our episode. And it was really leading to like the final episodes. You know what I mean? So I was very happy. I was very happy with how everything turned out.
For those who don't know, 4 sounds like death in Chinese, and then 8 is like a number associated with wealth. And what I liked about that episode is it's very intimate. It's about these 3 dudes, friends, kind of reconciling some of the. And this is something I want to get to is like their kind of judgments of each other, and it's very. It's basically synopsis wise the. Of the 3 friends, one's a director, one's a pastor, and the other guy is a, I guess he's a press agent or what?
He's like no, he's like an ad executive.
Ad executive, yeah. So they're all hanging out, and yeah.
Like
so
an account executive at an ad agency.
Right, and the pastor, he's going through like some regret about like some bad choice he made last night. But what I liked about it was like is. Kind of like I think that you and Jing were able to touch on sort of each of their insecurities, right? And how that manifests with their interactions with each other and how they judge each other. Because one thing I've been kind of thinking about lately is that I've been looking at some of my own judgmental nature. I think we've all had that. And it's like, oh, where's that coming from, Maybe it's coming from some of my own shit, maybe my own insecurities, right? So I think I liked how you guys did that, and also it's a fairly like I like. There's a lot of moments where there's like nonverbal humor, which I thought was fun. Like he has to get past the seat or some shit.
Oh yeah. I mean that's credit to Jewel, I think.
And I was like, okay, yeah, because the other ones are a little bit more verbose, Yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to. Fanboy a little bit about that one.
No, it was cool because we were in the writer's room and they knew right off the bat that they wanted each episode to feel special and unique. So we knew very, very early on that one episode was going to be the guys episode. The cast is essentially 3 guys, 3 girls. They're all, young, like mid-20s friends living in Atlanta. And these are like the offspring of the characters from the original Boomerang film. So that's why it's kind of like a sequel.
Taglines like unapologetically black, unapologetically young, something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, our episode was the 3 guys all in one apartment. It was a bottle episode and it was the guys episode, and we had some crazy ideas of how we wanted to do it. Like there were some wild pitches at first, but we ended up doing like a very intimate volatile episode, all in the pastor character's house or his apartment, and it ended up being really beautiful. I was very happy with how it turned out. And James, thanks for watching it, man.
Oh yeah. What was kind of like some of the themes that you explore in your work? I notice is there's a feeling of friendship is a big theme, but also tension within friendships.
Mm-hmm.
For Tino, for example, the brothers, one brother being way more popular than the other brother, and there's some sort of, I don't know, maybe inferiority complex possibly. That's also explored in Salvage as well, which we haven't really gotten into, but in Salvage it seems like, if you could real quick, the pitch of that story is basically, what's the pitch for that story? I guess Salvage.
I mean, just in terms of the actual plotting of it, like our main character, his name's DJ. His father dies, so he comes back to LA, and he has like a very specific plan of how that coming back is gonna go down. He's gonna bury his father. He's gonna inherit his dad's shitty South Central Chinese food and donuts restaurant. He's gonna sell that restaurant, and he's gonna use that money to start up his own dining experience. And he's gonna recruit his old best friend June. He's gonna get his ex-girlfriend back, and everything's gonna go great. But of course, every step along the way, it doesn't go according to plan.
Right.
And that's just like that whole intention obstacle thing. So yes, his dad is dead, so he's like still figuring out how to deal with that emotionally. But when he goes to the restaurant, he finds out that the restaurant's not worth anything. And not only is it not worth anything, his dad actually owed money to it, so the bank technically owns the restaurant. And then, so yeah, he's not going to make any money off of this Chinese restaurant. And then when he approaches his old friend June, who now has like a decently successful taco truck, June wants nothing to do with him. And like, yeah, like that I feel like that relationship, to me at least, was born from a relationship I had in high school, where my old best friend and I, we wanted to start this like t-shirt business. Like, I feel like we could have been
Bobby Hundreds.
We could have been Bobby Hundreds if we stuck with it, because this is like 2007, and we wanted to do Build-A-Bear but for t-shirts. So like you have a station, you have a shop, you just bring in your photo, or like you could design it kind of like Q Studios and then print it out right then and there. So we really wanted to get into that business, but it didn't pan out. I think we had like a really solid idea, but we had very little follow through, and we didn't really know what it would take to pull off something like that. So that was really, to me at least, the relationship between DJ and June. Like,
okay,
they grew up together. DJ was more the controlling one, and June was kind of like the one that was always bullied, but he always loved to eat, and DJ always loved to cook. So they were like a great pairing together.
So who are you?
No, I mean, I definitely exist in all my characters. Like, I can say that for sure. I relate to June in a lot of ways, but I also feel a strong connection to DJ, like without a doubt. But yeah, like I think their relationship, they tried to do this taco truck thing in the past, didn't really go according to plan. DJ was dealing with his own personal shit, couldn't follow through on the taco truck. He left, went off to New York to do his own thing, to do his whole culinary school thing, and he probably expected June to just do the same, to just give up on their pursuit, but no, June was like, I'm gonna stick with it. And he built that truck on his own and was able to do it. So when DJ comes back into LA and he sees that it's up and running, it's like, how does that actually make him feel? So that's kind of what we try to explore in the scenes with DJ and June, at least.
Yeah, and what I found very kind of cool and eerie was that my script Uproar is also dealing about two friends, and one being like basically these, like your best, basically having a falling out with a best friend, right? Yeah. And I thought that was interesting because I see that in Tino. I also see that in Colt and Rocky for your Three Ninjas.
Mm-hmm.
Like not really falling out, but more like this tension of like, so you think that stems from maybe high school, that relationship you had there, or is that just a theme that you just unconsciously seem to you imbue your characters with, you know?
I mean, that's the core of drama. Like, I consider myself a dramedy writer, but I think I lean a little bit heavier on the drama side. That's just relationships, man. That's just life. That really is just life. You know, my best friend right now, we have had, I want to say, like 4 falling outs where I think we both believed that we would never talk to each other again, but somehow we always found a way to get back into each other's lives, you know?
And then,
yeah,
not to interrupt, but you were the mentor for James on the TAF pitch competition. What sort of things do you have to do as a mentor? I mean, what kind of, do you just like provide advice on his pitch, try to refine it, or?
I gave James like bad advice, actually.
Oh yeah, maybe we should get into that before we forget. Like,
yeah.
I gave
By
James
the way,
like bad advice. The way I would talk
Uproar
about
was,
that is like,
Oh, should I pitch my story real quick, or?
I mean, I'll just go into like the process a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I think James and I actually do have somewhat similar personalities. In that, we both are like these sensitive artist types, and it's actually easy for people to rub us the wrong way, but it's always about how we kind of deal with it. So even when we sat down for the first time, I really wanted to have a very honest conversation about what our boundaries would look like. And that's not just about like James taking up too much of my personal time. It was more about how were we going to work together creatively? Like if I gave him a note, how would he receive that note and how would he reflect that into the work? Would I feel like it would be a safe place to be fully honest with him? You know, those were the kind of questions that I was trying to answer for myself in our first meeting. And I think James, like I shot him some honesty and he shot some honesty right back at me. And I really appreciated that. But that really set the foundation for like our entire working process going forward. So it didn't really matter if I gave him bad advice and steered him in the wrong direction. I think what was important and what the takeaway was from that was really just this sense of trust. And, you know, that's just what made like the mentorship a lot better, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think the way it looks basically is that we had that first meeting in person. We had another meeting in person where we would discuss what our weekly assignments would be, like what my weekly assignment would be. So so for pitch, one thing that we both agreed on was like the basic structure of the pitch would be about 10 minutes. That was the requirement. And it'd start with maybe a personal story, introduction to the characters, and then the plot and that's something that we both agreed on, and then maybe a small outro connecting to the themes and whatnot. So we met a second time, and he said by this time I would like you to have at least introduction to the characters, and then after that we met via chat like this with you, Dan, and I would basically pitch Henry, where I got up to. Oh, did I get up to Act 1? And we use Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 as like markers, just so that we had concrete goals to hit. And yeah, and I felt safe. I felt that Henry was rooting for me, and then when he gave me notes that hurt my feelings, that they were from a place of not being controlling, because that was one of the things that we discussed, was that I think we both sensed right away we're sensitive artist types, and what with that sensitivity is that we're sensitive to people imposing on us.
Yes.
Because I think that's happened to you in the past. That's the feeling I've got, and that's happened to me in the past, even with high school friends and college friends. Yeah, feeling like, oh, someone's imposing their idea, and that's actually the episode 1 of Boomerang. But anyways,
right.
Yeah. The series. So that was something that we both said, hey, this is something I've noticed in this is what has caused past relationships for me to break up, friendships to break up, is that I felt that someone was imposing, and I've also felt this creatively as well. And so I let Henry know that, and he was very honest. He was like, I totally understand where you're coming from, James, and I respect that. So with that groundwork, when Henry gave me notes, no, like I'm kind of being facetious, but I wasn't. Yeah, sure. Maybe it's like, oh dang, I wasn't hurt, but I was more like, okay, I see where he's coming from. Let me look at that note and how can I make this better? Or should I say fuck it? No, fuck him. Like I don't agree with that note. And he told me, right, James, if you ever feel the need to like just toss that note, by all means do so. And that was great. So basically, some of the notes I received were like, yeah, just basically trim it down, make it more streamlined as far as getting through, hitting my time, but also like what was essential, what are the essential parts to this pitch, what do I need to communicate, and how can we trim the fat to get there. And I think even just by the questioning that Henry brought to my story, even though he would sometimes, what was great is that he wouldn't even give a prescriptive note. He would give like, he would just ask questions like, oh, why do you have that sex scene in there? I had a sex scene in there originally. And he's like, I'm like, does that help you with the story? Or something? And I'm like, maybe not. So anyways, yeah, I think gentle nudging is kind of like a way I would call Henry's coaching. Yeah.
I knew very early on that at the end of the day, it was going to be James who was going to be standing on that stage in front of a whole audience of people and in front of a panel of judges. It wasn't going to be me. I would be sitting very comfortably, just like judging everybody else. So I knew that I could not give him advice that would gaslight him. And I've been in positions where I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't feel safe, and I know how that can really affect the presentation or even the work. It can make you feel like a child, you know, like it can really bring you to a place where you feel like you're kind of helpless and even useless. So I definitely didn't want to impose that energy on James. Like I wanted to make sure that I could support him and make him feel strong and make him, you know, essentially the best person that you could be. And that's why, like, at the very, very least, when you did your pitch, you had good energy. Like, that is without a doubt. Like, you were presenting it like someone who knew their story, was extremely passionate, and that came across. The issue is, and where I say, like, I steered him in the wrong direction, is it became very clear that what the judges were looking for was not like a screenwriting pitch. Like, it wasn't to pitch the story of a movie. They wanted you to pitch the package as if you were talking to financiers who are going to greenlight your movie, who are going to write you a big check. So they were really looking for like essentially a log line. And there were like a couple other contestants who did pitch their entire story beat by beat, and they just kept saying the same thing. It was like, you know, that's what the script is for. That's what the script is for. And I think like that was my bad, because this is a humble brag, but I am in a place now where I don't have to write the script first. I can pitch the story. They can either buy it or they don't. And if they buy it, then I write it. But for this competition, everyone came in knowing that they had a script written. So I guess the pitch competition, was really more about how can you effectively pitch your package so that someone can greenlight your project and effectively give you $5,000, which is the grand prize winner.
That was a grand prize. Yeah, $5,000. But yo, Dan, like one note I got from one of the judges was like, you know, when we in a pitch meeting, we want to see that the person that is pitching is likable. I was like, what? Like, what? Is this guy saying I'm not likable? Or, and I was thinking about it, and you it's funny you say I had good energy, but I could see maybe that, and maybe I was being a little bit, I don't know, like too intense, I guess. Like, yeah, if I were to do it again, maybe I'd start with maybe some like humor or something like that, you know, let my personality come out, you know, but I think I came in with like a mission, like I'm gonna make these people see how important this story is, not just to me, but to the world, you know, why it needs to be made and stuff. So anyways, I thought I
don't think you came off as unlikable I mean, you were intense, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was a bad thing. I don't think it was to your detriment. It's because of the content. Like because the content was about a school shooter.
Yeah.
And you come off with that intense energy. They're like, wait, is this guy a school shooter? Like, that's the only thing that I would get from that note. But
Yeah.
I think the judges overall were into it.
Okay.
And you know, at the end of it all, I think I saw the winner come up to you, and he had some words of advice for you, and he ended up really liking your pitch, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. So I mean, and not to humble brag too much, but like I started liking my story more through the work I did on with you, and also on the story. I was like, the night before I had like this epiphany of how I wanted to end the story. I was like, oh shit, and I was like, and I was getting emotional from my own story. And it wasn't as if I was writing it. It was more like my characters were telling me, hey, James, this is how it was going to play out. And I was like, okay. And I was like, damn. So we are running kind of over.
Right.
Yeah, Dan, so we can wrap it up. I had a few more questions. Dan, did you have anything real quick?
No.
Okay.
I think you answered most of the questions.
Yeah. So I guess... what was I going to do? Yeah. So very quickly, lightning round. Why is Parasite a perfect movie?
Dude, I think Parasite is a perfect movie because, like, I have had a lot of friends say that was one of the most stressful movies they had ever seen. And I don't think you get a film that is that intense and that stressful without it flipping your expectation 180 degrees. So like, I think that the way that they set that movie up in the first half was so brilliant, so that when shit does hit the fan, it just hits you that much harder. It just has that much more impact. I think that's extremely hard to pull off. I think it really takes a master storyteller to get even close to what Bong was able to capture on screen. And I think that's also exemplified in that final sequence. So many filmmakers could fuck that up royally. It takes someone with a very, very delicate touch to really balance that tone and everything that he was able to do. So I think just that final sequence is like a master class in storytelling, man.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And dude, it was a Korean film that is most likely going to be nominated for a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And dude, it really got America to go into the theaters to watch a movie completely subtitled.
Right.
That's why it's badass.
It's pretty badass, and that anxiety, that shit's real, dude. You haven't seen it yet, huh, Dan?
I have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I have.
That, yeah.
But it's interesting because like you look at a film like Good Time, which also is very, very stressful, but it's stressful through and through, like the entire time. It's when you don't have your guard up. It's when you're laughing at these jokes, and then you flip the switch. Like, I think that's when it really gets you.
Right.
I think that's like, that's extremely, extremely well done.
Okay. I just quickly, what did I shared what I got out of circling back to the pitch thing. What did you get out of the pitch thing? Have you ever mentored a top before?
I don't think I've ever mentored someone in that capacity. I realized that I do like it. And I mean, what I got out of it was, dude, our relationship, man. Like, that's one key thing that I got out of it. But if you're looking for something more concrete, I think really, yeah, I remember like in the beginning we had a conscious decision for me not to read your script, because I just wanted to hear it fresh. And so like actually getting to hear you pitch it and seeing the details that you weren't willing to let go of, or details that I saw as an outsider and believed that should be trimmed, I think that helped my own pitching too, because then I was able to identify places where I could trim, because I also go long. I go very, very long in my own pitches. So that was something concrete that I definitely learned from the experience. So like sometimes you just need to get out of your own head and see somebody else do it, and then you'll be like, I could do it better than him.
Okay. Let's see. Last. One other thing I just want to touch on real quick is what do you look for in a writing partner? You and Jing have been writing together for a while now, and like, what is that just something that happens organically, or like, I think, yeah, just that kind of relationship, because having a creative relationship with another person, it can be like, it can be sensitive, like you said, like
Yeah.
where you butt heads. I've co-directed stuff before, and like, yeah, there could be a clash of ideas. So how does that relationship work, and how does, yeah?
It's very interesting because you want someone that shares sensibility and taste, but at the same time you want someone very different so that they can actually complement you, and they can fill in your gaps. I read into a lot of these like personality types. I'm an INFP and Jing is an INTJ. So
Interesting.
I think on paper you wouldn't expect us to really get along, but I think that the times that we are able to speak the same language and be on that same wavelength, dude, that's when we come up with the dopest shit. So like, I think you need someone that is going to challenge you, but is also patient enough to understand your weaknesses and is patient enough to be able to turn those weaknesses into strengths. Like, I think that is like what you should get out of a partner. But at the same time, it does require commitment from both ends. You know what I mean? And then also just, I think like one interesting thing is, even if you do work with a writing partner, I think it's very important that you don't spend too much time together, and you don't just start developing the same friend group. Like, it's very important for you to have your own life so that you can continue to bring fresh ideas and fresh perspectives to the table. Because if all of a sudden you develop this monolithic point of view, then it's almost like, well, what's the point of having a partner? You guys just have that same worldview. But what makes the partnership fruitful is having those two different point of views so that you can discuss them and you can, debate them till the cows come home,
And like, when you guys first met, was it like instant chemistry, or like what was that first meeting like?
I think, well, we bonded over filmmakers. I mean, we loved Wong Kar-wai. We loved like a lot of the like foreign cinema. Like we've since, and this still happens. Like when he turned me on to Jia Zhangke, and like I saw Ash's Pierce White for the first time, and that was dope. And like we had a good time like chatting about that movie. So like, I think it was really a bond over films and filmmakers. And he also like introduced me to a lot of really dope commercial and music video directors that I'd never in a million years heard of. So like, yeah, he opened me up to a lot of things creatively. And then I think for me, like, I was able to really lend, experience working in the industry and like how to navigate all that. But yeah, like the initial meeting was great, but at the same time, we knew that we were two very, very different people. Like, we say this in the beginning of most of our pitches when we pitch together. It's like, he's from the East Coast, I'm from the West Coast. He grew up in a town that was, or I grew up in a town that was predominantly Asian. He grew up in a town where he was the only Asian. So there definitely is, a lot of difference in between us. But yeah, when we come together, it's like, the shit is dope.
You guys met in a USC class?
We met at USC producing a mutual friend's thesis film. So it was this girl named Lulu.
Not Lulu Wang.
Not Lulu Wang. Although I did go to USC with Ryan Coogler and had a directing techniques class with him.
Damn.
Yeah, this girl named Lulu, she asked me if I would produce her thesis. I said yes, and she told me there was going to be another producer who was currently in Shanghai, but he would come back to LA to shoot this, or to produce this thesis. So I was like, awesome. And then I remember the first time I ever met Jing was over Skype. So that was really interesting. Because yeah, he was doing amazing things in China at the time. And then the other guy that was also involved in that project was JC Chang. He was like our third producer / associate producer.
Okay. Nice. All right. let's last question. What was like a very seminal film for you that you saw either growing up or in film school or whatever, that really kind of like was like, oh shit, I want to do film, you know?
For me, honestly, it's The Matrix.
Wow.
Yeah, I think what that film was able to accomplish, I was like, yeah, that's 100% the movie that made me want to make movies. But that's a very separate question from, you know, what's a movie that you would have made? Because to answer that question, or like what's a movie that's like very close to like your sensibility? Because then I would lean more towards something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Ex Machina, or Her, because I really love that like grounded science fiction space.
Gotcha. But I guess it's still kind of in that realm of, you know, what can be, I guess, kind of sci-fi, I guess, or like, yeah, for me, Her, fucking, I saw that shit at least twice. Yeah, I saw it twice in the theaters. That's that film floored me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, after I watched that movie, I wrote a letter to my ex-girlfriend.
Wow. And you mailed it, or you kept it?
I mailed it because she was living in Taiwan at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, let's go to Language Corner. This is our last section with Dan and I. Basically, we ask, like, if you know any phrase in Shanghainese, Chinese, or any phrase in a particular language that you know, that other than English, or even if it's like a cool phrase in English maybe, that you know, we share at the end of the podcast, kind of like a cultural exchange.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Dan, did you have anything, or?
Yeah. The word I'm gonna use is kando. Kando suru is to be moved. So you can actually watch movie. I learned about this movie or this word because I was showing Beauty and the Beast to a bunch of Japanese people, and some girls were starting crying, and I was like, "Did you like it?" And she goes, "Oh, sugoku kanto shita," meaning I was like really moved.
Wow.
Kando suru. So it's a verb. Yeah.
Kando is like the feeling, and then suru is like to do or to be.
Kando suru. Okay. Let's see. One, okay, 四目交 I think I got the tones right. Well, 四目交头，北头的头。Yeah, so 四目是一二三四的四 1 2 3 4. 目是眼睛 like is like your eyes. 四目交头。交 is like to exchange. 头 means to throw. So it's kind of like when two people lock eyes. 四目交头. And yeah, it's kind of that feeling. Yeah, like maybe you see you connect with a romantic partner, and then you guys look 四目交头. You guys both lock eyes, and there's two eyes, a pair of eyes there, and you guys talk.
Right.
Yeah. So I saw that in a TED Talk recently. I've been trying to listen to like Chinese TED Talks, and I'm like, I'm catching some stuff, but I'm like, damn, that's a dope ass word. But anyways, and you speak Shanghainese, yeah?
I speak Shanghainese, but I think the one I want to contribute is a Korean word or phrase that I learned recently. It's jigopyeong, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering it completely, but I think it closely translates to the decay or like the disease of your profession. So like no matter what you do, if you do it long enough, you will essentially gather negative attributes from that job. So like for example, my girlfriend, she's a teacher in Korea, and
she's Korean, right?
She's Korean. She being a teacher has like changed her personality, where she's very patient with others, but sometimes too patient, and sometimes she has to talk to her students in a certain way to kind of get their attention. Well, she does that with her own friends and her own family. So that would be like her jigopyeong, like the disease of her profession.
Oh.
And for me, I think like with writing, it's almost like I'm in some characters' heads so often sometimes that it spills into my own social life. And sometimes I overanalyze other people. I give them, I might give them like some faulty advice because I'm like so stuck in the mode of like what one of my characters would do. And then other times like I'm like so focused in on certain words that when I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm like dissecting every single word that they're using. So like that would be my disease of my profession, my jigopyeong.
Oh wow, that's a great phrase, man. I it just made me think about like some of the notes you gave were like very word specific. I noticed in my pitch, which is fine. That's great. Yeah, I noticed that. One thing I got from you was like, damn, Henry is like a wordsmith.
Oh, I'm definitely not.
He's like a word doctor, you know? Like yeah.
If you have a conversation with Jing, like you'll realize that like I'm not even close to his level. I mean, he's just so well read, and I'm nowhere close to that, but I'm slowly beginning to see the power of words. And I think when you're able to actually wield it as a tool, that's when like a new door to writing definitely opens up. So like I'm slowly getting it with the writing. I haven't really adopted it for speech, but I think when you really are able to like properly wield those tools, you'll be able to really manipulate some folks. So like that's really what I was trying to get you to think about, was like in certain sentences, like think about what kind of emotion you're trying to evoke out of the audience and what words can you use to really get that out of them.
Yeah. And I think don't sell yourself short, man. I think you have your strengths, man. You have your strengths. Yeah. The one thing I noticed, if I can just offer, is that you're fairly self-deprecating sometimes, you know. And but I think sometimes, like, dude, you have some really strong strengths, and I think that sensitivity that you have is actually not a weakness at all. It's a very strong, very perceptive quality that you have, and I think all the best to you. Thank you for sharing, and love you, man.
No, I love you too, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. This was fun.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. All right, this is Yin Young. Thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. Where we are on YouTube, Spotify, all the good platforms, and see ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.